Hello, and welcome to Rock and Roll by the Numbers with Bob and Justin. I'm Justin,
I'm Bob.
and on today's show, we are going to have a little bit of an interview more than an actual show. Bob has been to a lot of rock and roll concerts in his day, and we're going to talk about a handful of them. I have a list that we could not get to this whole list in one show, so we'll talk about a handful of them. If you have any suggestions for future shows, please feel free to email us at rockandrollbtn@yahoo.com. Hit us up at Twitter at rockandrollbtn. Let's get into the show. So you've been to a lot of concerts, huh, Bob?
Yes, I have.
I've been to 4 actual concerts. 3 if you want to count. If you want to be technical about it, it was 3. Because I saw Cyndi Lauper open for Rod Stewart. She played about an hour and 10 minutes, hour and 15. She came back out and did a song with Rod during the middle of his whole set, which he played for probably 2 hours, every hit he had. But I've seen Rod Stewart outside Chicago, Roger Waters in 2010, I want to say, doing The Wall in St. Louis. And I saw Bob Dylan 2 years ago with you at the Chaffetz in St. Louis. It was Chaffetz, right?
It's that new name. No, it was the Peabody. Now it's
It's on Market in St. Louis, downtown St. Louis. Cool little venue, cool show. I'm sure we'll talk about that. So I haven't been to many concerts. I was a carny for a number of years, and I did see concerts, but I was working. I wasn't paying attention. I was in and out. I don't count any of those actual shows I've been to. So I think I've got a good track record with concerts. We were supposed to go see John Fogerty last year, and we were trying to score Pearl Jam tickets last year before the pandemic happened. As soon as the pandemic's over, we are going to start going to concerts again. Steve Miller was going to play up at what used to be Riverport, which is now Harrah's Amphitheater.
Yeah.
These name
it's the
changes.
Casino thing. Yeah.
So you have been to a lot of concerts. I circled a few that I thought would be interesting to talk about. Let's start with The Who. When did you see The Who?
It would have been after Keith Moon's passing. So I saw him with Kenny Jones, and it would have been probably 1979 tour.
Were they promoting a new album at that time?
They were. I think it was "You Better, You Better, You Bet" album. Face Dances. That song was on there. Face Dances, and they hardly played any song off of there. They just went back to their hits.
So you got a greatest hit show.
Absolutely.
And the $1 million question: was it a good show?
Oh, over and above. Absolutely, 100% worth it. I lived in Chicago, and we drove back to Detroit to go see it, and it was worth every second of it. All my friends stayed at my house, and it was phenomenal. And it was general admission, so we had to get there bright and early. So we were waiting in line to get in line.
So what seats did you end up getting?
It was the first days of the Pontiac Silverdome, so they cut it in half. So they had a big screen at the 50-yard line, so it wasn't that. We got seats. We could have gone down on the main floor, but we all just decided to get front row as close as we could without being on the side.
Front row, first bleacher, was the seats that we had before they got refunded to us for John Fogerty. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, now that would have been twice as close because the dome is just a long ways away.
The Pontiac Silverdome is where Hulk Hogan slammed Andre the Giant WrestleMania 3, and they had a record crowd of, I think, 96,000. At least that's what WWE claims. It's probably more like 80,000, but still 80,000 in that place. Cut it in half, 40,000. I don't think the little Fox Theater that we were going to go down to holds 10,000. So probably a couple. It would have been a cool concert, real intimate. And hopefully he comes back. What was the best moment of that show? Do you remember, like an encore? Was there an opener?
No, I don't think there was an opener for that. I can't picture. Like I say, we were there. We were waiting in line to get in line. So by the time we got into line, they let us in. And this was, here's a little tidbit. It was the show after the tragedy in Cincinnati where several people got trampled to death. And this was the next show.
Where they didn't open the doors on
They
time?
didn't open the doors, and they let us in. Since we were waiting in line to get in line, they let us in probably about 10 o'clock. So we waited inside for about 6 hours instead of out in the cold elements, which the people in Cincinnati did.
Is the dome enclosed?
Yes.
Okay. Well, do you remember what the encore was?
I can't.
But
Can't remember the set.
It was
list.
a good show.
It was a good
And you got to
show.
hear all the hits, Pablo O'Reilly.
Everything, yes.
Behind Blue Eyes.
Yes.
Man, that would have been cool. You also have on here a band that we've talked about a lot in the past couple of weeks, Queen. You talked about seeing Stone Cold Crazy live. What else did you see? When was this?
This would have probably been in, I saw him twice in 78. It was the News of the World tour. And,
The We Will Rock You album.
Yeah, We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions. So, yeah, that was a big part of the show. And it was gaudy. It was over the top. It was audacious. It was Queen at its best. And, in fact, we got top seats, nosebleed seats. But this was only a 12,000-seat Cobo Hall Arena in Detroit. And Freddie's voice in there. That was the only time I've left a concert when everybody didn't say a word when we were leaving. Everyone was just mesmerized by what they had just saw and trying to comprehend what they had just saw and what they had just heard. Because when he would hit those high notes, it would just go right through your bones.
Weird question. Was this long hair, no mustache Freddie, or short hair, mustache Freddie?
It was short-haired mustache Freddie.
That's the Freddie I would have. I don't care really, but if I had to see one, short hair, mustache. Looking like an extra from the Village People.
Absolutely.
And people didn't know he was bi, really?
Probably not at that time so much, yes.
You remember the encore? Was there an opener?
I can't remember if there was an opening band. I mean, I once again, I can't remember the set list per se, but I'm sure We Will Rock You was close to it. There had to have been. I mean, it was, they went through everything.
Was that song out long enough for everybody to be familiar with it?
It wasn't an anthem yet, but you could see it was heading that way.
So the crowd didn't rumble with the stomps and the claps yet?
No.
Because if you play that now, the whole crowd is going to stomp and clap. And I can imagine back then when it was newer.
But now, when I saw him in Chicago, I saw him at the stadium in Chicago.
Was that
afterwards?
How many years after?
It was a few months.
Okay, so
I
same
went
tour?
to school. I went to college in Chicago, and the same tour. And we said, yeah, why not? And we got a ride down there, and this was like an old shed compared to the little place we saw him at. So it was a lot different sound and acoustics. So. And once again, we were in the nosebleeds, but it was good to the point where, I knew what was going to happen, but the sound wasn't there. It was there, but not like I just had it reverberate a couple months earlier.
Still a good show?
It's a very good show.
Brian May was playing the hell out of that Red Special.
Yep.
I would love to hear that guitar in person. If there's any guitar, not a guitarist to see, but any guitar I could hear in person, that's the guitar. I tried to make my own guitar when I was a kid. I had an acoustic guitar that my mom bought me from the Sears or JCPenney's Christmas catalog one year, and it was a cheap piece of junk guitar. And I think she spent almost $100 on this cheap piece of junk guitar back in the day. But the bridge, every time you tuned the strings, the bridge came up, and it finally popped off one day because it was just almost particle board. So I took the neck and I put it on a box. And I didn't know back in the day you could make, well, not back, still today, you can make cigar box guitars. I just made a box and kind of nailed it. It was very rough, but that was my inspiration. Brian May and that Red Special that him and his father made using random parts, including random parts from the fireplace. If you look at that thing, it's a real guitar. Like they did some research and made that thing proper. And it sounds great. And it sounded like that in person?
Oh, it was, yeah, it was just over the top. Audacious, loud, and bold. Yes.
To have seen Queen live once would have been awesome, and you got to see it just twice.
Twice in the next month. Yeah, it was great.
Another band I'm very jealous about. Another one of my favorite bands, Pink Floyd. Now you've got Pink Floyd on this list and Roger Waters. You saw them separately.
Correct.
Now the Pink Floyd you saw, was it with Roger Waters?
No.
So you saw Pink Floyd without Roger Waters.
But I saw the three others. There, Nick Mason, Wright, and Gilmore were there.
Richard Wright.
Richard Wright.
Was that the Delicate Sound of Thunder tour from the 80s?
I believe so, because it was at the Checker Dome.
Promoting the Momentary Lapse of Reason album, Learning to Fly and Dogs of War.
I believe so. And they did what actually broke Pink Floyd up. They did their hits. They did a full rendition of all their songs. And yes, did I say afterwards they missed Roger Waters? Yes, I did say that. But still, it was still Pink Floyd to the bone.
My dad and my uncle Mark went to that concert in the 80s. They came home bragging about the light show. And then my dad bought the VHS copy of that tour, and I watched that till I wore that tape out. They had the all the background singing, the ladies in the background who were awesome on the tape. And then the steel slide guitar that David Gilmour plays. I'd have loved. That's another guitar I like to hear in person. Mm-hmm. David Gilmour's steel slide guitar.
And they had all their little toys. They had the big inflatable pig. They had the bathtub coming from the ceiling on the wire. They had all their props. Yeah, it was total Pink Floyd.
So they played everything, including
played everything.
No opening band?
I don't think so.
Isn't it weird how the biggest bands don't need an opener?
They don't need an opener.
Like we saw Dylan.
He didn't wait. Yeah,
Dylan came out all by himself. And
yep.
What was that? Roger Waters didn't have an opener. Roger Waters, you saw him during the Hitchhikers tour?
Yes.
The pros and cons of hitchhiking.
The pros and cons of hitchhiking.
Which, by the way, if I can interrupt for a second, was the choice when he, after Dark Side of the Moon, I want to say, he gave Gilmour a choice. He goes, I've got two ideas for albums, The Wall or Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking. Gilmour said, well, The Wall is more about the band and rock and roll. Let's do that. So they did that together, and Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking became just a Roger Waters album.
Yeah, and his guitarist, lo and behold, special guest guitarist, was Eric Clapton.
For the whole show?
For the whole show.
Man, that would have been cool.
And they announced, when he announced them, of course, everyone went nuts. And I can't remember if we knew beforehand or if we just found out a little beforehand or what, or just found out at the show. I can't remember, but they announced he is not going to be doing any Eric Clapton songs, so don't request any or shout any out. So there's going to be no cocaine, no nothing.
I don't think of Pink Floyd when I think of Eric Clapton. That seems totally different for him. And it would have been really cool to hear his guitar also. Boy, you've been in the presence of some guitar gods.
Yes, because he did the whole Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking album, and then he did his major snippets off The Wall and a few other Pink Floyd hits that he chose to. I wish I would have had that set list with me, but I can't remember it.
How old were you when Jimi Hendrix passed, or when Jimi Hendrix was in his prime? Were you old enough to know who Jimi Hendrix was?
No, I only picked him up after his death.
Man, because that's probably the only guitar god you're missing on this list, besides some of the old blues players.
Jimmy Page, I would have liked to see.
Never saw Led Zeppelin?
No Zeppelin.
Saw Robert Plant.
Saw Robert Plant.
Talk about that one.
Robert Plant. We saw him.
Where was this?
This was at the Fox Theater in St. Louis in 2011.
Oh.
And it was like, I was on my way up to Branson, and it was the show we left the next morning up to Branson with my brother-in-law. And, phenomenal show. And he's risky. He takes some of his Zeppelin classics and turn them into little acoustic ballads or a country honk type song.
Was he by himself?
It was the Band of Joy.
Okay.
So he had his Band of Joy, and I can't remember off the top of my head who was in that band, but they were phenomenal. And yes, and they did play some actual Zeppelin the way it should have been played too.
Did he have an opening band or?
Yes, the North Mississippi All-Stars.
North Mississippi All-Stars.
Yeah.
Who are the North Mississippi All-Stars?
They were just I'm sure a band, and they were phenomenal. It's a 2-man band, and I was sort of interested in that because I was just getting into the Black Keys, so it was like another 2-man band. And they did phenomenal. I really enjoyed them. And
do you remember what Robert Plant's encore was?
If I could remember back, the Zeppelin songs is probably my best bet. They did Black Dog. They did Tangerine, which shocked me off of Zeppelin 3, and did actually some songs that. On the side 3 of Physical Graffiti, Hey Hey Mama. I can't remember the name of the song when it starts out like that. What's the matter here? And it was, it's just like picked right off of that album. And I can't see Zeppelin ever doing that song at some point. Maybe they did, but yeah, he would do some almost like country alt versions of some of his songs. It was great.
Let's talk about a guy that we both like, one of our favorite musicians, Tom Petty. When did you see Tom Petty? Was it with the Heartbreakers?
Yes, both times.
So you saw him twice.
Yes.
What time frame were these concerts?
See, it would have been the first one would have been 81 or 82. The Hard Promises, his third or fourth record tour. And that was really good. Everyone was just on board now. Tom Petty had established himself. Refugee had come out. Damn the Torpedoes was out. This was the album after that.
Where was this concert? Detroit?
This would have been in Chicago at the Rosemont Horizon.
The Rosemont Horizon.
Yes.
That's iconic.
Yeah.
Especially to a wrestling fan. So.
And he was pretty funny, and he had a toy up there. He got a spotlight, like he aimed it at just about everybody in the audience. He was pretty funny, actually. So everyone got to know Tom a little bit better because he was a personality and a half. And not to mention how good they sounded. Good Lord, they sounded.
Did they have an opening band?
That I can't. No,
Do you remember what the encore was? The first concert.
I would say somewhere around American Girl or Breakdown would be my guess.
Because those would have been his biggest hits at the time.
Yeah, and I would do.
I wonder what if he was still alive and he played a show today, what his encore would be, because he could pick and choose.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I would go Free Fallin' if I was Tom, but who knows? Like it could be I Won't Back Down, a number of songs. Mary Jane's Last Dance. What was the second time you saw Tom Petty? Was it also with the Heartbreakers?
Yes, it was here at Riverport. I don't think it was Riverport. Who knows what name it was at the time. And that show, we sat on the hill and got tickets.
2000 and...
That would have been 2000. I believe my daughter came. I want to say maybe not. Because I know she went to Coldplay with us at the same place. And I don't know if I'm getting the two confused, but what I saw there amazed me. It was a sold out show with a whole new generation. I was the old fart there back in the day, and I was like, I was amazed. It's like Tom Petty has a new generation of people who like it, and I said, this is nothing but good. The youngsters were there in full force.
Isn't it weird how kids will insult us older folks and our old folks' music, but they're still listening to it. They still, they're heroes and icons and they're musicians. Still some old guys out there rocking. Foo Fighters still get young fans.
Well, like the Foo Fighters, they're one of the the living souls of rock and roll that still play rock and roll live.
There's a concert I regret not going to. They were playing on my birthday, I do believe, October 13th, just like 2 or 3 years ago. We should have went. But thanks to the pandemic, we're not going to turn down any concerts anymore. Once we can start going to real shows again, we're there. We're at 20 minutes already talking about 4 or 5 concerts. Let's talk about, so we haven't had any concerts where we talked about opening bands. I know you've been to a couple of concerts where the opening band blew the actual band away. Let's talk about some of those concerts. I know Van Halen was one of those bands, right?
Yeah, I think I mentioned that in a previous podcast. That
Who was the actual concert?
It was a Journey show. Journey was the headliner, and that was with the first album was Stephen Perry.
So this would have been late 70s?
Was it Steve Perry?
Steve Perry.
And they did half the show with Perry and half the show without Perry. And Ronnie Montrose was, and it's not the Montrose you think, it's the same guy. And I sort of felt for him. We knew that he was not doing Montrose with Sammy Hagar type music. He was doing more experimental stuff. And people were yelling Bad Motor Scooter, Rock the Nation, all those songs. And it was so, I was embarrassed for him because it was...
So Ronnie Montrose opened the Journey show.
He was in between.
He was in between
Van Halen.
Oh my goodness!
And I just had bought the album, and I said, okay, well, let's go check them out. And there was, and when we made sure we got there early so that we could see the whole show. Most of the people were either in the hallways or in the lobby or waiting outside, because this was another fancy one. It's like the Fox Theater in Detroit.
And this was also early Van Halen.
It
would have to be.
Yeah,
right.
It was there right at, nobody ever heard of them. And so once they started cranking up Eruption, Running with the Devil, you really got me. Well, people started rushing on in to get it. We were amazed because it was like everything that the first album brought, they did. And Dave was the ultimate entertainer, and he was pretty funny too. And people were begging him to come back for an encore, and he's like, "Hey, we got 45 minutes. We can't come out for an encore. Just check us out the next time we're in town."
And then Ronnie Montrose had to go up after that.
Then Ronnie Montrose had to follow them, and
a bad spot in the lineup.
And now, if he would have come out with Sammy Hagar, it would have been fine for everybody. But most uneducated concert goers at the time, we were just shaking our head. We knew that this fourth Montrose album or so was not Rock the Nation.
So he didn't play any Sammy stuff.
No, nothing.
Was there a reason for that? Because he was just promoting his new album? Or?
Yes, and they weren't together anymore. So,
but how was Journey?
Journey was really good. We really liked him before Steve Perry, and we were fine with that. But when Perry came along, it sort of popped him out a little bit. But that first album with Steve Perry, we really liked. Wheel in the Sky.
Wheel in the Sky is a good song,
and that's a pretty good album. And that was good. But Van Halen, come on, they took this show with 45 minutes set.
Was there any concerts on this list that weren't a great show? I think you mentioned Boston, but that's also because they couldn't replicate that album.
Boston
live.
was disappointing.
Well, okay, hold on. If the Beatles had tried to play Sgt. Pepper live, it probably would have been the same response.
Sure.
So maybe they tried to do something that couldn't be done.
Sure, and once again,
and I'm not a big Boston fan. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
That was at the
who do you remember who was with?
That
Boston?
was at the Pontiac Silverdome, I want to say too, or somewhere big.
And that's a very big place. A very sound travels up.
And Boston album was being played out the wazoo, so we all knew it backwards and forwards.
What were the big hits off of that album?
Long Time, and that was the one I was disappointed with the most. It just, I don't know. It just didn't hit the vibe with me. Plus they whoever billed it wrong. They had Sammy Hagar opening up. And Sammy rocked the joint down, and he actually did come back on for an encore.
How far removed from Montrose was Sammy at this point?
It was probably around Don't Drive 55 time, that era of Sammy. So
Can Try 55.
probably several years, and he came out for an encore. He said, "Well, everyone's getting mad at me now, but I'm going to get one more guy mad at me, my old buddy Ronnie Montrose," and they did Space Station #9. And it was like we could have all watched Sammy for another hour and gone home and not even watched Boston and probably been fine. And Eddie Money was in between those two with his 2 Tickets to Paradise, and he got a few good songs. And he even rocked out a little bit better than I thought Boston did.
Is that why they're all together?
Yeah.
Eddie Money. Okay, so let's end the show with the only concert we've seen together. I'll go last, but what are your thoughts on the Bob Dylan show we saw? I think it was, let's set the scene. I believe it was St. Patrick's Day in 19.
Sounds familiar.
It was the day or a couple days after the Blues won the Stanley Cup. So we go down to St. Louis on Market Street. We go to Maggie O'Brien's, and we're eating corned beef and cabbage because it was St. Patrick's Day.
That's right.
We're having a pitcher of beer, and in walks
Greg Berube,
the
manager, the head coach of the Blues.
And you fanboyed out a little bit.
Yeah.
And I would have done the same thing if a pro wrestler walked in or, somebody I actually knew. But you got a picture and you got some autographs for some of our people here and for yourself.
And my daughter.
And
She's
your
a
daughter.
big Blues fan, yes.
And then after seeing the head coach of the Blues and having a good meal, we walked down to what was the Peabody, whatever it is now.
Yeah, gosh, I wish I should remember that.
They changed. I couldn't tell you what the Savage Center was called when I saw Roger Waters. It's not Savage anymore. Scott Trade
Enterprise.
Center. Enterprise.
Trade, yeah.
It was a Keel Center, Savage, Scott Trade, Enterprise. Who knows? Who cares? It's a building downtown. Lots of people go in there. They play music. So we get to Bob Dylan. We have decent seats.
Very good seats.
And we're on one side of the audience. And the stage is split in half. And he plays on the side we're on. And only on that side. No opening band. Did he even turn down the lights?
Did they even play music before the show?
No, they did an announcement that said if we see a phone, you're going home. They were adamant about the phones. And he started up. He played. And what are your thoughts on this? Because you're a bigger Dylan fan than I am.
Well, we were lambasted with people saying, reviews. Oh, well, he's not that good anymore, or let me know.
He doesn't play guitar anymore.
My in-laws were saying, oh, let me know how this goes. They saw him back, and I was pleasantly surprised.
One of the big bosses of this company told us that he's going to mumble his way through it and you're going to be disappointed. First of all, he came out playing guitar. Everybody said he doesn't do that anymore. He didn't mumble.
And he rocked through the show just like you would think Bob Dylan. He's not going to have much conversation with the audience. He
song
just
after
rolled it.
song after
he
song
just
after
rolled
song.
right through it. He got up and danced. Before, when my in-laws saw him, they shut the lights down after every song so they could move him around because he had a bad leg or bad hip. So he obviously got all that repaired. And yeah, is Bob Dylan's voice Bob Dylan's voice? Yes. Was it great? No, but it's Bob Dylan. It was phenomenal.
The songs he sang sounded good. Like he sang with some gusto. I think he put some effort in everything. I was not disappointed, even though I didn't know a lot of those songs. He's not a Rod Stewart. He didn't come out and just play all his hits. There might have been one song I knew before, maybe two, To Make You Feel My Love, and there might have been something else.
About the masterpiece, my paint my masterpiece.
Maybe, but I know I went home and looked up all them songs and listened to a bunch of them.
Well, that one I knew the set list coming in, and he stuck to that set list to the core.
He plays what he wants. Well, he's old enough to play what he wants to play.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
yeah, it was.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
That's why we had tickets to John Fogerty, because you bought me those tickets October of the year before or something. You like for your birthday. I'm taking you to Bob Dylan. My birthday's in October. I think it was St. Patrick's Day by the time the concert, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was somewhere around there. Whenever the Blues won the Stanley Cup, because it was days after that, if not just a day. It was really funny to see the head coach of the Blues. Well, we got the Fogerty tickets. The next year, I was going to take you to Fogerty and or Pearl Jam, and maybe even Steve Miller. I know I want to take my mom to Steve Miller, so we'll definitely have a part 2 of this episode, because we haven't even scratched the surface of this list. To go through all the concerts that you've been to, man, there's Hall & Oates, Jay Giles Band, Sunvolt, Amy Mann, Radiohead, Bonnie Raitt, Todd Rundgren, Morrissey. The Cure is on here. Where'd you see The Cure?
At Riverport.
Let's talk about The Cure real quick, because I didn't notice The Cure on this list. What year was this?
This would have been Blood Flowers tour. Yeah, so that would have been, I want to say, early 2000s.
Okay.
Maybe.
Did they have
If
an
not
opener?
late, I can't picture that. I can't see The Cure having an opener, but they could be wrong.
What did they play? Just that album, or did they play?
They played a lot of that album, and they played a lot of Wish. You know, they're 2-minute intros and they're 2-minute outros of an 8-minute song. So but it sounded really good. And one of the most unique things with them, Robert Smith they have no background singers. He's the only one with a microphone on stage. And that's
the drummer or the guitarist.
Nobody else sings. So there is just him, and they do their backups with their instruments.
Do you remember what the encore was for that show?
I want to say something off of Wish. Maybe Darkness by the Edge of the Deep Green Sea.
Did they do anything? Did they do any early stuff like Boys Don't Cry?
Yes, but they do that very rock and rollish. They did it very skimpily before, because they were just a very skimpy band who didn't play very well. Well, Robert Smith saw the weakness in all that and beefed up the band, and so now they bring those early simplistic rockers back to life with a full band with awesome guitarists.
I'd like to hear some of that.
Yeah,
I'd like to see The Cure.
Yeah.
They're on my short list of bands I'd like to see before I die.
And it was free. My friend got the 8th row seat from his brother-in-law worked at Anheuser-Busch, so we got an Anheuser-Busch seat for that show. Yeah.
How far back was that?
8th row in the pavilion. So yeah, we were right there.
Did you get to see the all the makeup on Robert Smith's face?
Yeah.
Were you close enough to see his makeup?
Oh, yeah. He don't move around much.
And his black eyeliner. That's something else from Bob Dylan.
But he looks around.
We didn't get to see Bob Dylan in a hat. He didn't wear a hat.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, it's my only regret. Bob Dylan didn't wear a hat. But once again, it's an iconic show. He's an icon. I saw Bob Dylan live. I heard Bob Dylan's voice in these ears. Not from a record or a CD, live. Rod Stewart, Cyndi Lauper, live in my ears. By the way, Rod Stewart was awesome. I saw him outside Chicago with Cyndi Lauper. Played every one of his hits, every single one. Maybe 2 I could think of at the time he didn't play, but I couldn't even tell you what they were now. And Roger Waters was awesome, The Wall, of course. So he did it from beginning to end. Snowy White was his guitarist then, really well-known session guitarist. And he played on Top of the Wall, too, Snowy White did. That was cool. If I see more concerts, we'll have more to talk about. But we'll definitely have another concert interview segment with you, because I want to talk about some of these. We're not going to talk about it today, but you also said you saw Diana Ross and she yelled at people. Save that for another. That's a little sneak peek. We'll hear about Diana Ross yelling at the crowd. Was it the crowd?
Yeah.
Okay, don't say no more. But there are so many heavy hitters on this list, Bob. By the way, who are the Trash Can Sinatras?
Oh, they're just an alt band that I was remember. I saw them at the old Cicero's
Where's that
in
at?
U City, and that was, if anyone could remember the old Cicero's in U City.
Is that in the Loop?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the Loop, the stage. Now they moved and got a better venue, but the old one in the basement where the bands played, there's a big beam right in the center of the stage. So they had it all padded up so no one would bump their head. So the Trash Can Sinatra guy was swinging on that beam. It was pretty funny.
It's better that the beam was on the stage and not in the crowd, because my luck, I'd be the guy who bought the ticket behind the beam. I've seen a bunch of pictures of sporting events where people have gotten a ticket behind a wall or something. Why would you sell a seat behind that? But that is our show this week. It was fun hearing about all your concerts. I want to hear more. I will not talk to you about them off air. I'll wait until our next show that we have specifically for concerts. I think next week we're going to talk about some hidden gems from bigger bands that most people might not know, or some people might not know, and maybe some overplayed songs from those same bands. But that's our show for this week. You got a closing line for us this week, Bob? Tell us something about rock and roll.
I know it's only rock and roll, but
But
I like it.